All right, welcome back to the Thor Hammer Project. In this tutorial, we're going to kind of wrap things up and finish off the strap and the tip of the hammer. You can see here's the low poly version, which has it finished off. I added a division on here, just on the tips. When I hit number 3, you can see it kind of rounds off a little bit there. Again, all this geometry here would, if I hit number 3, it would allow smoothing. And the strap is created through a process using curves, which we'll go over here in a sec. That's why this little guy is here. And if I hide the low poly for a second, you can actually see the curve here that was created to create that. So first off, with the high poly version, we're going to finish off the cap here real quick. And so the cap by itself isn't horrible if I hit number 3. But basically what I want to do is just add an edge loop on here to basically finish it off. So I'm going to, again, double click on my edge loop tool and make sure relative distance is selected. And again, that's under edit mesh. And here is, I'm sorry, mesh tools. And here's the insert edge loop tool. So again, I'm just going to click here and kind of bring it up to, keep it kind of tight there. So when I hit number 3, you can see here I'm getting a nice sort of crispness when I click off. That looks pretty good. It's holding it pretty well. I could add also, another one back here if I needed to, but actually I deleted the interior. I believe I did. Let me double check that. Yeah, I deleted the interior faces. If I didn't delete these interior faces, I'd probably have added another edge loop right along here just to add some more structure. I mean, I could still do it. I could still add one more, like right here, just to kind of make sure that that form is basically, being supported when I hit number 3. Without that, it might bend in a little bit, so it's actually not a bad idea to have that there. Also breaks up the polygons just a little bit more. So, all right, so the cap's pretty much done, because if we look at the cap here, the sort of texture writing stuff on there, I would sculpt that detail in Mudbox. So next up we have the strap here, which again, if you look at it, it basically folds over and wraps around. And my version here that I have in the low poly might be a little bit big. Turn on the low poly just a little bit here. So I could shrink it just a little bit, and we'll kind of use this one as a guide to create it. So I'm going to turn off the low poly, and you can see the curve is still being created here. So the way curves work, if you click on the curved surfaces here, you can click on this third icon. It's the, if we double click on it, we can open up the options. This is a CV curve tool. And I'll click reset tool. So by default, this is set to 3 cubic, which means as I click, I'll get sort of rounded curves right here. And I can hit enter. But if you look here, that curve went really into space in a weird way. So they really have to be worked on in terms of orthographic views. So I'm going to delete that curve and tap spacebar, and I can close this guy out here. And I'm going to kind of be in the side view here and basically kind of use this as a guide here, this curve. So yeah, in fact, I'm going to turn off the high poly mesh too, just so you can see the whole line of the curve here. Now I'm going to click on the curve here. And again, the idea here is that we click around to kind of create the connecting points where the sort of strap goes through. So when I click here, I'm going to start on one end here, and I don't have to be exactly where that line is, but I kind of want to make these short kind of distance. So you don't want to go, like, for example, all the way over here and click. You kind of want to have shorter to give you more control and flexibility, and just essentially more detail in terms of the points. You can go a little bit further, but I don't want to go too crazy in terms of the distance, so I want to give myself some flexibility there. So again, I'm just kind of going through, and I'm going to end a little bit sooner. I'm going to end it a little bit. I feel like that last one was just a little bit too long, so I'm going to make this just a little bit shorter. I'm going to go up a little high here, and then low, and I'm just kind of creating this little wave here. And then I'll get to the end here in just a sec. And once you get to the end, you basically just have to hit the enter key, and there's your curve. And so there it is. And so basically, let me turn back on the high poly. And in fact, my mesh right now, if I hit the up arrow to the group, you can see here I moved it out so I can zero it out and put it back in the center here, just so we can see a little better. But the idea here is this curve is going to come from the inside of these little clips here. And you can see this one is kind of going in a little bit too far. So what I can do is I can right click on here and go to Control Vertex. And if I hit number 4, I can see a little better, see through. And I can grab these points just by dragging over them all like that. And if I hit the W key, I can kind of move it in, and adjust it accordingly. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of like moving around if I need to. I feel like, there it's right in the clip area. Now down here, I'm not quite sure. I think this one's also not quite sitting in the correct area. So I'm going to drag across a few more of these like that. And hit number 5 and kind of bring it down just a little bit. So there we go. So now it's tucked in there, maybe up just a tad. Essentially, I want them to kind of originate underneath the clips right there. And then to get out of the curve, just right click, go to object mode, and there it is. So what I need now is a little circle like this, and here's the circle. And so I'll just click on that to add another one, and basically I can just drag it out, and then I'll scale it down. Essentially what I'm using this is the profile of the extrusion that goes across to create the strap. So I'm going to try and essentially make that same shape there. So I'm just kind of scaling it down quite a bit, and then I'm going to grab the blue cube and kind of flatten it so it's a little bit basically more like a strap kind of shape here, and you'll see this in just a sec. So now what I can do is with this selected, I'm going to select the inner one, not the outer one, because this is the new one. So I'm holding the shift key and select both of these, and then I have to extrude it, and the extrude icon is right up here. It's this little weird icon here in the curved shelf unit, but you can go to surfaces, and here it is here, the same little icon, extrude. And I'm going to go to the options here. I'm going to click on that little square, and I'll go ahead and reset everything. I'll go to edit and reset settings. So this is what it would normally look like if you open it up first time. And essentially what I want this to be is a tube, and I want it to be at path, which is this guy right here, and I want it to be a component and profile normal. I don't want this to be NURBS geometry, but I want it to be polygon geometry. And then I scroll down here, I want quads, which are 4-sided. And I don't like the center fit. I'm going to choose count. So count's kind of nice because I can dial a number here. And the number that I found worked pretty good last time was 300. And I'm going to try that again and hit 300 here. And then I'm going to simply click apply. And then here you can see my cool little guy here. Now it looks like it's getting crunched a little bit here. I could adjust that a little bit by maybe reducing the number actually. Because I did shorten it, maybe I don't need 300 here. So if that happens, you can delete it, repeat the same process again. So grab this guy, hold shift key, grab this guy, and then I can change the value in here. So I'll put maybe 250, or maybe I'll put 240 maybe. Whoop, not 2040, but 240 here. And I'll click apply. Let's see how that looks. That looks a little better, I guess. Yeah, that'll work. So a little less detail. Close it out. Now, the thing to understand about these are linked right now. So if I change the scale of this, see how it adjusts the scale here? I'm going to hit Control-Z to undo. I actually think the strap scale looks pretty good there. I might scale down just a smidge, maybe like right there. Because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to extrude out some thickness to this geometry. And so I want to make it just a little bit thinner here. So I'm going to select this and isolate it. Click this little icon here. And you can see that it doesn't really have any thickness. And when you start sculpting or adding kind of texture detail to things when they don't have any thickness, sometimes it can be problematic in a program like Mudbox or ZBrush. So I'm going to right click, go to face mode, and select all my faces here. And then I'm going to extrude them. I'm going to hit Control E to extrude. And then I'm going to grab the blue arrow and just pull in a little bit or out. So if I pull out a little bit, you'll see what happens. The color corrects itself. And you can see here I'm extruding on the inside a little bit. So I'm just going to fill in just a little bit, about maybe, I don't know, 0.0 Looks like 0.017 looks pretty good right there. And that gives me a little bit of thickness there. So now I can go back to object mode. Now next thing I want to add is a couple divisions on the sides to give it a flatter sort of profile. So I'm going to go to my custom shelf, double click on the insert edge loop tool and choose multiple edge loops and choose 2. And then I'm going to click on this side right here and then on this side right here. And then I click out with my arrow and then right click, go to object mode. Now let me unisolate everything. And I think that looks pretty good. Now if I hit number 3, you'll see it has a smooth mesh preview. And right now, if I did need to move something, I could still move it with the curve here. So if I hit number 4 here, it's this one here, right? I have to select it, and it's a little tricky, but you can zoom in on the curve. So I'm just kind of zooming quite a bit until I get to like right here. And then right on the curve here, my arrow, I'm just going to right click and go to control vertex. Then I can zoom out. And so like right here, the geometry is kind of piercing a little bit here, and I just want to kind of move it up. And this will give me a softer transition if I do it this way. So I can basically bend it. You can see that the other ones are kind of averaging out that curve. So if I need to adjust anything, I can do it now. You have to be careful after you've done an extrusion though, not to bend it too much. So you really want to kind of do any changes before you do that extrusion that I did earlier. And I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit number 5 to go back to shaded solid. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, I could, spend a little more time kind of getting maybe this part of the, these guys right here, just to kind of push them in just a smidge, just to make sure it's underneath. And, I might need to bring the cap up a little bit. This is where some adjustments might need to happen. Maybe I bring this cap up just to give a little more room. And then the bottom here of this cap, maybe I go to edge mode and just double click on that edge and kind of bring it downwards just so it kind of pierces the geometry out of the way here. And that will kind of give me some room there. So I think I'll do the same thing on this object, kind of pull it out a little bit. And I think with this guy, let's see. Let me select that curve one more time just to double check it. Yeah. And I'll zoom in on the curve. Again, it's easier to do it this way because if I didn't zoom out, if I started right clicking, I would get my vertex and faces, which are for this object here. And I don't really want to get that. I want to click on the curve. So I'm going to select the curve again and then just zoom in on it and then right click and choose control vertex. And now I can go hit number 5. Well, let me select those verts here, or those vertex, control vertex. And now hit number 5, and now I can kind of finesse a little bit better. So I'll move this down. In fact, it's not really piercing the geometry a little bit, so I might even like roll it in a little bit more here. It's giving me a warning about the ring. So this is again where it becomes a little problematic with everything. Let me undo that a little bit and maybe just drag across a little bit and kind of just pull in the whole ring here. There we go. And then I'll just kind of drag across here and kind of pull that up a little bit, something like that. Now, this clip here, I will pull down just a smidge. And again, I might, do more finessing, but I think this is a good kind of start. Switch to edge mode, double click on that edge, and just kind of pull it into the geometry there. And that will kind of hold it in place. Then go back to object mode. So basically at that point, if I want to make sure I don't accidentally mess with it with the curve, I would delete the history. And I think I can do that at this point. I am just double checking that there's no major issues with the strap, and it looks pretty good. Again, in Mudbox, I can still change the shape a little bit, but I'll delete history. Now the connection to this guy is broken. So if I scale this up, nothing will happen to this guy, which is pretty good. And so that's kind of the way they want to work in terms of the process here. But you can, I can then hide these curves and save them for later. you know, and put them in a layer on a group, so I can always keep them, you know, for later. Sometimes it's kind of nice because sometimes you might want to rebuild it. Maybe I want the strap to be a little bit wider. I'm just like looking at the width here. I could scale it out and do that and get something out of it, but let me just look at the reference one more time here. I mean, it is kind of thin. It's not super wide, so I think we're doing okay here. Let's go back to Maya here. So let's yeah, let's bring back the or let's hide the high poly for a sec, and I'll grab the low and select the whole hierarchy, including this strap here, which is the new strap for the low, and kind of move it over, maybe a little bit further, and then turn on the high. And so here you can see, even with the low poly, the strap has to have more subdivisions in order to create the curves. Afterwards, I could start to delete some of these edge loops if I wanted to. And what that would require me to do is to come in here, double click on an edge loop, and maybe I could do like every other one. Hold the shift key, double click. But I have to be careful. If you do too much of that, what will happen is it'll kind of break the rhythm of it. But I'll just maybe delete these two just to show you. If I click the delete, you know, option here, and I could start to spread those out, and I could get to a lower res. I'll undo that just for right now, though. I think I'm going to keep it at a little bit higher res here. So yeah, so that basically finishes off the models. At this point, they're pretty much good to go. I might do some, you know, a little more organization, make sure all my history is deleted, transforms are frozen, and so forth. But now we've completed through these 8-part tutorials in Maya here, creating a low poly and a high poly version of Thor's Hammer. I hope you enjoyed this series. So in the next series of tutorials, I'll actually bring these models, or the high res model, into Mudbox and apply, you know, textures and the detail, and then add those maps to the low poly eventually. So until then, see you soon. Cheers.